follower of the gospel that led him to be a voice for justice and peace. I'm going to say that again. Because he was a follower of the gospel. He was a voice for justice and peace. And we can do that as well. His faith and commitment towards nonviolence brought dignity to farm workers across the Southwest, but he didn't do it alone. He had a community that surrounded him. They had the same ideas, the same convictions. Cesar Chavez once said that it is possible to become discouraged about the injustice we see everywhere, but God did not promise us that the world would be humane and just. He gives us the gift of life and allows us to choose the way we live, the way we will use our limited time on earth. This is an awesome opportunity, and you have that same opportunity here today. You see, God gives us the gift of life, and he also gives us opportunities to make a difference in the world. Cesar Chavez also states, we can choose to use our lives for others to bring about a better and more just world for our children. People who make that choice will know hardships and sacrifice. But if you give yourself totally to the nonviolent struggle for peace and justice, you will also find that people will give you their hearts, and you will never go hungry, and you'll never be alone. And giving yourself, you will discover a whole new life full of meaning and love. That's the gospel right there. And so, the passage that Edgar read in Spanish is from Galatians chapter 5, verse 13 to 15. And Paul writes that God's greatest commandment is to serve one another and to follow God's other greatest commandment is to love one another. And I think at times as humans, or at least for me, we become so centered in ourselves that we forget the value and the importance to watch out for one another and to be a community. I know sometimes I do this too, thinking like, oh, what does Cesar Chavez have to do with me? You know, I'm not Latino or Hispanic, or why do we have to worship in Spanish or another language? Sometimes it's easily to kind of check out of an issue or a topic because it might be a little bit different from what we're used to. But my history is your history. My language is your language. My obligations to care for you are also your obligations to care for me. Because this is something that Christ calls us to do. In Colossians, Paul talks about like the community, and that's what Jesus came here for. He brought us to be part of the community, to be here for one another and to make a difference. Even if it's a small difference, even if it's just coming to the Cesar Chavez movie or worshiping in Spanish, whatever it is, you're making a difference. When Cesar Chavez and the community of people that he surrounded himself with started their efforts to improve the lives of farm workers and their families, it was centered in this idea that comes from the gospel, that we were responsible for one another. Everything that Cesar did was underpinned by the gospel of Jesus Christ. Every major initiative by the United Farm Workers organizing community began with a prayer many times, and there were services or mass where it was celebrated on an irrigation ditch in a farm or in a ranch. Cesar's message to the workers was simple and powerful. God did not intend for them and their families to live and work as robots, devoid of dignity and wages and benefits most U.S. workers do for granted. This is the reason why I think Cesar was so compelling, because he was bringing God's kingdom closer here on earth, and we can also do the same together. There are times when God will bring you opportunities that you can make a big difference or a small one in someone's life. And at times, I know for me, sometimes I feel like incapable of doing something. Or I'll say like, oh, that's someone else's problem. They'll figure it out on their own. But if Christ or Cesar Chavez had this kind of same mentality, then nothing would have gone undone. There would have been no gospel. The song that we worship in Spanish today, it's called Su tuvieras fe. You know, the one that we dance, Si tuvieras fe, un grano de mostaza. If you had faith as small as a mustard seed, you can do anything. You can move a mountain. You really can. And so this is kind of the message that I want to bring you here, that if you just have faith and if you follow the gospel, you can make a difference, even if it's a small one, just like Cesar Chavez. And so, I just want to thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
morning. My name is Yesenia, and I'm a senior here at Warner. And I was asked to talk a little bit about why Cesar Chavez is important to me. One of the first things that I thought about when I was learning more about Cesar Chavez was something that one of our very own professors here talked about in one of his classes, which was, he said that if there's not something in the world that you feel passionate about changing or transforming or doing something about, then you're not looking hard enough. It was just a really intense moment in our class because he was basically challenging us to look at our spiritual pulse and be like, do you all care about something in this world, or are you guys just going around looking at your Snapchats all day, and your Instagram, or your Facebook, and just that's your world. You don't see anything other than that. And so we were all challenged, and I guess it's the same thing that I want to challenge you all to think of something in the world that you all feel passionate about changing or making a difference for. Cesar Chavez had this. He saw a need in our community. He saw an injustice and was willing to do something about it. He saw that farm workers weren't getting fair treatment and was willing to go on and do something about it. In the most respectful way, I feel like, because he was all about nonviolence and understood that if you really want to change something, you can't force your beliefs onto someone. You can't force people to not treat others unfairly. You have to be willing to talk. And yeah, so when I think of Cesar Chavez, other people that come to mind are people like MLK, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, and the list goes on. So why is it that I put Cesar Chavez in the same box with those people? Is because to me they all embody what we now coin as social activism or social justice. And social activism is, I just mean that anyone can be an activist. I think that Karina is an activist here on campus. She sees the need for ending sex trafficking and is doing all she can to try to end it. I see other professors here on campus, like Professor Martin, Professor Johnson, who go out on these mission trips and are willing to build relationships with others and bring change. On campus, Professor Goebel is so involved with Raise Oregon, which is all about bringing change to the foster care system. There's people in our community within here at Oregon that are willing to make the world a better place. There is a quote by, I've been practicing his name, I feel like I'm going to mess it up. His name is Yehuda Bar, and it said, I come from a people who gave the 10 Commandments to the world. Time has come to strengthen them by 3 additional ones, which we ought to adopt and commit ourselves to. This is it. Thou shalt not be a perpetrator, thou shalt not be a victim, and thou shalt never but never be a bystander. Perpetrator. That's my accent, I can't get that one right. We get it, that's a bad thing. We can all agree that what Hitler and his things that he did, they weren't cool. Just wrong. Thou shalt not be a victim. All of these people, Chavez, Mandela, they all had these forces working against them, but yet they didn't use that as a chance to blame themselves and blame others or victimize themselves in order to not get what they wanted to do done. So if you all believe that there is something out there that you would want to see change, then don't blame others, don't blame yourself. It's a personal responsibility kind of thing. You all can go out and do something about it. And I know it sounds very cliche, we hear that all the time, but I really believe in it. I think it is possible. And the other part of the quote is, thou shalt not be a bystander. Psalms 146 says, he upholds the cause of the oppressed. God has a special place for people who are struggling, people who are oppressed. There's a specific instance in the Bible where Jesus is in the temple and women are getting kind of ripped off by these people, and Jesus gets mad, because he's like, that's not okay, that's not the way it should be. And I think that kind of inspires me that it's okay to sometimes, I sometimes do get mad when I see other people hurting others. I'm like, no, that's not okay. But then what do I do with that? Those feelings, how do channel that anger into something that I can actually move something forward to. So I just wanted to once again talk to you guys about personal responsibility and talk to you about how it takes initiative and courage. And all the people that we inspired are people who embody this. And you all can do something about it. This, even here on campus, I named a whole bunch of people who are working towards making the world a better place. Student Diversity Council is always open to hearing from you all about what you all would want to see change or done here on campus or off campus. Throughout this month, we'll be having events around social justice and different issues in our community that we can all get involved in. So I would just encourage you all to come out and support and